If you've been scammed by a fraudster and you're convinced that they've defrauded you with intent, it may be very tempting to make the allegation of fraud, but it's worth getting legal advice from a solicitor or barrister or somebody else regulated under the Legal Services Act, which we are not, before making the allegation, particularly when you're going before the court, because standard for fraud is actually quite a high one, given that fraud effectively is dishonesty with the intent to deprive somebody of property, money. Now, that's quite a high standard to meet, because the question of intent is you're having to put yourself into the mind of the other individual who has conducted this particular, and then proving it to the standard required by the court. Very easy to make the allegations, very easy to say, oh, well, it's obvious that this person was doing what they were doing with intent. But that's not necessarily the way that the court looks at it in terms of the burden of proof and the threshold that you have to meet. Now, there may be other options available to you in relation to recovering your money if you've been scammed, without necessarily having to make an allegation of fraud. And if you're taking legal advice from a solicitor, a barrister, or somebody regulated under the Legal Services Act, they will hopefully, if you haven't met that standard, rein you back. Interestingly enough, as far as barristers are concerned, if they're making a case before the court, they have to have specific instructions and they have to have sufficient credible evidence that clearly demonstrates the case of fraud. Otherwise, they are simply not really permitted under the Bar Standards Board Code of Conduct to put that before the court and make the allegation. Could potentially have professional consequences for them if they are in breach of that particular aspect of their code of conduct. But take legal advice, listen to the legal advice that you've got, and there may be other options available to you which are of a lower standard that still enable you to get your money back potentially, or at least get a judgment from the court to that effect, without actually going all the way to the top of the tree and making the most serious allegation of the lot. Questions, queries, concerned, give us a shout. We know insolvency inside out.